What we're going to talk about today is Google Ad Grants. So that's PPC primarily. We'll kind of get into the definitions of it. Google Ad Grants is something that a lot of our organizations have used or have potentially used in the past, or have maybe had some issues with it. Starting from the very top level here, and this is probably maybe too introductory from some people, or if not all people here, but what we mean by paid search obviously is same as kind of pay per click, and that kind of example there highlights it. If I was to look for the word, for example, Fat Beehive, our organic listing counts as obviously an organic result that's controlled by kind of various algorithms and factors. That's like an earned type of representation that we have on Google, but you can obviously pay to access user searches and put your website kind of top of the list. It's obviously very much in Google's interest. It's a huge revenue driver for them. And part of kind of maybe the big guilt of Google being Google is that they give away a percentage of their kind of funds, and they actually allow users or kind of non-profits, charities, organizations doing good in the world to access a range of kind of monthly credit to kind of run PPC without actually having to put any financial spend to it. For everyone's reference, that's obviously kind of a live example I just pulled earlier today about what a PPC ad looks like. Obviously, a tool like project management tools is very easy. A lot of our clients don't have such big audiences to go after. Obviously, that's something that's searched for hundreds of thousands of times a month. But you can see here that the ad below, we're looking at kind of the blue text there are your headlines, obviously your opportunity to really sell your organization or the purpose of your page. And then beneath that are your descriptions. But that's just so everyone kind of has the same visual image about what we mean by PPC. But as I kind of mentioned there, the Google Ad Grant is Google's way of kind of giving back. They make huge revenue from what they do. So giving it back to kind of non-profits and charities, quite like 99% of our clients would be able to apply for it. And it gives you a free credit up to £10,000 per month. So that's $329 a day, which is, I think, £260, but I might be off on kind of the currency rate at the moment. But so it's obviously a huge source of marketing spend that most of our organizations would dream of having, and it's entirely free. So if we're looking at it from the perspective of kind of what we've sold today's kind of call about is, if we were to settle on 3 aspects of running your Google Ad Grant account where we know most of our clients have had hiccups in the past, or where potentially they've kind of ceased running it, or maybe they've just not wanted to go into running because it feels like too much work, is keywords, conversions, and campaigns. Keywords largely, and we'll dive into it in more detail, but these relate to kind of what do users actually search for? How do the people that you're trying to talk to in your organization, what it is that they actually want? And largely keywords work as kind of what users want from you as an organization. Keywords kind of tell us what it is that they're after. Conversions beyond that, that's more what we as organizations want from our users. It can be quite rudimentary stuff. It can be page views, although there's more beyond that. It can be donations, it can be financial. It can also be email signups, volunteer applications, job applications. So there's a wide range of things. And really, keywords and conversions are, keywords is what users want from you as an organization, and the conversions are kind of what you want in return for it. And if you can manage those two and get a real understanding of what it is you're trying to do across those two, the part about campaigns kind of fits together very easily. And actually, that's something that a lot of our clients have struggled with in the past when running Google Ad Grant accounts. So what we mean by kind of keywords is, obviously, as I said there, if we use Fat Beehive as a quick example, you can see at the very top we have web agency, and that's kind of crossed out. That's far too broad a term. Fat Beehive aren't really going to kind of make a dent for such a term. If you imagine you as an organization will have a number of things that probably count like that. And at a very top level, if you think about terms like charity or not-for-profit, they're far too broad. If you look at the very bottom, we have charity UX specialist just here in Borough, which is obviously far too niche and far too small. So really with keywords, what we're looking for is that kind of middle ground. So for us, a good example of that would be charity web design. I think PPC feels like quite a scientific or kind of complex thing, but what we definitely instruct our clients, and if you guys are interested in kind of doing Google Ad Grant work, is just to sit down and really brainstorm around what's important to your organization. So that can be problems that you have or that you're trying to solve, communities you're trying to talk to, issues. It can also be services you offer, and it can be stuff about kind of donations as well. If you actually set up the Google Ad Grant account, they have their own keyword planner tool. This is kind of similar to Search Console, which I hinted at earlier. And we use, again, the same example of the phrase charity web design for ourselves as a website. And it gives me a rough idea of how many people are looking for it in the UK that month. And then beyond that, it can also tell us other kind of terms that relate to it. So what we suggest our clients do, if we just go back to this example, is to sit there and kind of brainstorm around all the options and not start with the data, but actually start with what it is they're trying to achieve as an organization. And then as a second step from there, if you set up the Google Ad Grant account, you get access to this tool, which provides you all the data on, for example, charity web design was searched for 260 times in a month over a year on average. And then like that looks to be slightly down year on year. It's low competitive, and it also tells you, roughly speaking, how much you're going to have to pay to get someone to click on your website there. So it's a really valuable source of data on what's out there and what people are really looking for. So getting an understanding of what keywords really represent yourselves as an organization is really important. As I mentioned earlier, the flip side of it is that conversions are really what you as organizations want from your users. And that's really where a lot of people go wrong with Google Ad Grant accounts. They kind of see it as a means of bringing traffic to your website. It's kind of similar to what Matt mentioned earlier. Traffic in itself shouldn't be seen as a measure of success. It's obviously part and parcel of being a website. It's part and part of being a successful marketing department or whatever. There's lots of things that come with that. But actually, if you can really drive people and in turn they take converting actions that mean something to your organization, that's where the real value is. And where we see a lot of people go wrong with the Google Ad Grant account is that they see it as a means of traffic generation, but they don't see it for much beyond that. And conversion obviously is a term that kind of comes predominantly from more of a commercial world, and it sounds like we're talking about purchases or people buying memberships and all that kind of stuff. And as you can see on the top of the right-hand list there, purchases are very much a part of things, but beyond that, conversions can mean a lot broader things, and organizations should think more broadly than just kind of monetary conversions. So you can see there we have sign-ups, so that's volunteer applications, newsletter sign-ups, membership applications, account registrations, all stuff that a number of our clients do in different capacities. I'm sure a lot of you do as well. We also have lead generation ideas, so people clicking on the phone number, people clicking on the emails, people submitting contact forms, people even clicking on, and it says Slicks I think there, but clicking on your social accounts as well. Anything like that counts as a lead, and that can be used as a kind of basis to run your Google Ad account as well. And then lastly, we have views, which is kind of what we're speaking about, views of a page, a campaign page, a donation page. And that's where obviously the bulk of Google Ad Grant work has gone for most of our clients in the past, but really starting to expand and think more about what you actually want. And it kind of relates to what Matt was saying as well. It's kind of what you actually want from users, what your website's there to achieve. If you really get an idea of those things and use them to build up your Google Ad Grant account, you're in a much better place than a number of organizations that kind of start out with it. So as I mentioned, kind of if you get an understanding of what it is you're trying to get from users and what it is that you want, what it is that they want from you in return, you really have the basis of a very Google friendly and kind of box ticking campaign structure. So if we use an example that's probably a bit more relevant for yourselves and most of our clients. If we were looking and we wanted to raise the amount of people willing to volunteer for us, that would be a conversion action where we'd set up a campaign that was geared towards people submitting volunteer requests. And then within there, we have various ad groups and they relate to our keywords. Maybe there's a lot of people looking to be student volunteers. Maybe there's a lot of people looking for corporate days, and that's an audience we can access and build upon. Maybe it's fundraisers, that one in the middle there. So it goes back to thinking, really brainstorming on what it is we need and what it is that users want. And if you can find those ideas, kind of like this example, you have a very coherent structure. And that's kind of how you should be running a Google Ad Grant account. It shouldn't just be a case of trying to promote pages that you know already do well. So yeah, just to kind of recap on those ideas, conversions are really the most important thing. What do you want from your users? It's the quickest way to burn through that $10,000 a month. It sounds like a lot, but it will go very quickly. The quickest way to burn through it is to not really think about what you want out of users and just to focus on the traffic. Beyond that is the keywords, that first point we spoke about, group together the things that your organization are really trying to achieve. Work that out and then look using the Google Ad Grant tool at what it is that people really search for and start to understand we're doing these things and this is how we're going to access those users. And then campaigns, as I said, that last slide, really, if you break down what you know from your keywords and your conversions and structure your campaign around those things, you're putting yourself in a good position to succeed and to really harness what is a very valuable asset. It's a big source of credit or kind of marketing spend that a number of our organizations, even kind of midweight or kind of larger organizations, still $10,000 a month of free credit to use on this kind of thing is by no means a bad thing. So really, they're the kind of ideas that I think are central for kind of anyone starting out with Google Ad Grants accounts, or anyone who's potentially done it in the past and not really seen success, or maybe kind of lost their way with it. And the last thing to kind of keep in mind, I guess, with that is the hard work, unfortunately, doesn't end, when the campaigns go live. It really starts at that point. So when you're kind of spending the valuable time, you're all very busy and you only have finite resource to give to your organizations. When you're spending time kind of running these campaigns, try to remember always that most of the outcome, so 80% of the benefit of doing it, will come from just 20% of the campaigns you're running. It won't obviously be those exact figures, but the idea is if you run 10 campaigns and 2 do very well, spend the time you can put to it on those 2 to kind of reflect and refine on what works and push it from there, rather than trying to fix the remaining 80%, because your time is obviously very precious to your organizations. And this is going to be the way you see results from it far quicker.